Don't listen to the knocking in these mine walls. The old-timers always told stories about the Tommyknockers. They're spirits, they'd say, that tap on the walls of a mine. A friendly little knock to warn you of a cave-in. A sound you should be grateful to hear. The sound that could save your life. But what if the knocking isn't a warning? What if it's an invitation? Down here in the crushing dark of the Blackwood mine, I learned the hard way. You don't listen to the knocking. It's not trying to save you. It's trying to lure you deeper. Section 1. The setup. My name's Jake, and for as long as I can remember, I've been drawn to forgotten places, rusting factories, abandoned hospitals, the overgrown skeletons of towns time left behind. I'm not a ghost hunter, not really. Call me a historian of decay. I document the final chapter of these places, the stories etched in their dust. For years, the Blackwood mine, tucked away in the Appalachian hills, was my Moby Dick. It wasn't just abandoned. Local legend said it was cursed. It was shut down for good in the late 50s after the Great Collapse of '57. A whole section of the western tunnels just gave way, burying 14 men under 100,000 tons of rock. They never even tried to recover the bodies. The company just sealed the entrance to that wing of the mine with concrete and called it a day. A few years later, the whole operation went bust. The place became a ghost story, a cautionary tale you'd hear from old men on their porches. They'd talk about strange lights or voices on the wind near the sealed entrance. And they'd talk about the knocking. Now, the legend of the Tommyknockers isn't just a Blackwood thing. It's an old piece of mining folklore that crossed the ocean with miners from Cornwall. They brought their stories of the knockers to America. These little gnome-like creatures who lived deep in the earth. Their knocking could mean one of two things: a friendly tap, tap, tap to warn you of a collapse, or a guide to a rich vein of gold, salvation or fortune. But here in the tragedy-soaked hills of Appalachia, the story changed. The gnomes were gradually replaced by a much more chilling idea. The knocking was from the ghosts of miners who died in that very pit. Men killed in collapses just like the one at Blackwood. Their spirits, still on the job, trying to warn the living. That was the story I'd heard about Blackwood, that the 14 men from '57 were still down there, tapping. Honestly, I was a skeptic. I figured the knocking was just the natural groaning of a dying mine. Rock settling, timbers creaking, water dripping. Mines are acoustically rich places. They breathe and shift, and a tunnel can carry the smallest sound and twist it into something that feels intentional. The folklore, I thought, was just a way for generations of miners to cope with the constant danger. But I had to see for myself. After weeks digging through county archives, I found some old schematics of the mine from before the collapse. I packed my gear, heavy-duty flashlights, backups for my backups, a respirator, and my digital recorder, and drove out. The entrance was a gaping wound in the mountainside, framed by rotting timbers. The air that breathed out of it was cold and ancient. It smelled like damp earth and rust. It felt less like entering a building and more like being swallowed. I set up a small base camp just inside the entrance, laid out my sleeping bag, and planned to spend a few days exploring the safe tunnels, taking pictures, and recording the sounds of decay. The silence was the first thing that really got to me. It was absolute. Not quiet, but a deep, pressing void. Every crunch of my boots, every rustle of my jacket felt obscenely loud. I went in about 100 yards, my headlamp cutting a clean white circle through the solid black. The air got colder, heavier. That was enough for day one. I went back to my camp, ate a cold dinner, and watched the sun go down. As the last light vanished, the mine behind me became a wall of impenetrable black. It was around then that I heard it. Tap, 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 tap. It was so faint I thought I'd imagined it, seeming to come from miles deep inside the mountain. I froze, listening. Just a rockfall, I told myself. A mine settling. It's a real thing. But this had a rhythm. It wasn't random. Tap, 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 tap. The exact same pattern. I pulled out my recorder, but the sound was already gone. A shiver that had nothing to do with the cold ran down my spine. I zipped myself into my sleeping bag, telling myself I was an idiot for letting the ghost stories get to me. I closed my eyes, but for a long time I just lay there, listening to the suffocating silence and waiting. Section 2. The confrontation and escalation. I woke up with a stiff back, the gray light of dawn filtering into the entrance. In the morning light, my fear just felt foolish. It was an old mine. The sounds were just sounds. Determined to shake it off, I packed a day bag and checked the schematic. My goal was a large junction about a mile in where several tunnels came together. The first hour was just the echo of my footsteps and the constant drip, drip, drip of water into dark pools on the floor. I passed side tunnels choked with rocks and debris, sticking to the main track as it sloped gently, almost imperceptibly, deeper into the mountain. I was about half a mile in when I heard it again. Tap. A single sharp rap, closer this time from somewhere up ahead. I stopped dead, holding my breath. My headlamp showed nothing but the endless, curving tunnel walls. I took one slow step forward. Tap. It timed perfectly with my footstep. An echo? It had to be a weird acoustic anomaly. I stood perfectly still. The silence returned, thick and heavy. I waited a full minute. Nothing. I took another step. Tap. It wasn't an echo. An echo fades. An echo mimics. This was a reply. My heart started thudding against my ribs. I turned my head, trying to pinpoint it. It felt like it was coming from the left wall, maybe 20 yards ahead. My voice sounded small and thin when I called out. Hello? Is someone there? Only my own voice answered, dying in the dark. I waited. Then, from the blackness far down the tunnel, a new sound came. Tap, tap, tap. Slower this time. Patient. A cold dread seeped into me. I had the undeniable feeling of being watched, of being tested. This wasn't just noise. It felt like communication. I thought about the Tommyknockers stories, how they were sometimes mischievous, hiding tools or playing pranks. A paranoid thought hit me, and I glanced at my pack to make sure my gear was all there. My curiosity was now at war with a primal instinct screaming at me to run. But the skeptic in me needed an explanation. Another explorer? Maybe a squatter? It seemed more plausible than ghosts. I decided to keep going, but very, very carefully. The knocking continued, but now it was leading me. I'd walk in silence for a few minutes, and then, as I approached a side tunnel, I'd hear a series of taps. This way, it seemed to say. Come look. I ignored the first two invitations, sticking to my map, but the pull was getting stronger. When I came to a third tunnel, the knocking was insistent. Tap, 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 tap. It was rhythmic, like a code. This tunnel wasn't on my schematic. It was older, rougher. Against my better judgment, I turned and shined my light inside. After about 50 feet, it opened into a small chamber. And right in the center of the chamber was a single rusted pickaxe, standing perfectly upright, its point stuck in the hard-packed earth. I froze. That's not possible. Tools don't just stand up on their own. This was placed here. It was a sign. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering. The playful folklore suddenly felt sinister. This wasn't a prank, it was a message. As I got back to the main tunnel, the knocking started again, but it had moved. It was now further down the main path, ahead of me. It was like it was disappointed I hadn't taken the bait and was now trying a new tactic. The feeling of being herded was growing stronger. The mind didn't feel dead anymore. It felt alive, and I felt like something it was trying to direct. I pushed on, my need to get to the junction now a desperate search for a landmark, something to prove I wasn't just being led in circles. 20 minutes later, my light fell on a barricade of rotted timbers and fallen rock. Nailed to a beam was a rusted sign with faded red letters. Danger, unstable ground, Section 8 West. My blood ran cold. This was it. The entrance to the section that had collapsed in ¡57. There was no concrete seal like the story said, just a chaotic wall of rock and splintered wood. This was the tomb of the 14 miners. And then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was soft, but crystal clear, and it was coming from the other side of the collapse. That was the moment my skepticism shattered. There was no one on the other side of that rockfall. There was no other side. It was tons of solid earth. No sound should travel through it with that kind of clarity. It was impossible. But there it was. A calm, steady knocking from inside a sealed tomb. The legend was real. The spirits of the dead miners were here. But the folklore had gotten one crucial detail dead wrong. I'd always assumed the knocking was a warning for the living, to keep them away. But standing there, a horrifying realization dawned on me. The knocking hadn't been a warning to stay away. It had been leading me here, to this exact spot. Suddenly, the knocking changed, no longer calm or patient. It became a frantic, rapid drumming, a storm of sound erupting from the rock right in front of me. Loud, demanding, desperate. Let us out. Join us. And in that moment, I understood the trap. The story of friendly spirits was the bait. The sounds weren't a warning of a collapse. They were a lure. They were designed to draw you in, to lead you to a place where the mind could take you to. The loneliness of the dead, reaching out not to save, but to gather. The feeling of being prey was overwhelming. I was trapped. My only thought was to get out, to get back to the sun. Section 3, the climax and resolution. I turned and ran. All pretense of exploring was gone, replaced by raw animal terror. The main tunnel was a black throat I prayed would lead me back to the world. But the mind was no longer passive. It was awake, and it was furious. The knocking erupted from everywhere at once, a deafening, disorienting storm. Tap, 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 tap. From the walls, the ceiling, the floor. It was like 1,000 hammers pounding on every surface, a chaotic rhythm meant to break my mind. The sound was a physical force, vibrating up through my boots and into my bones. The mine itself was screaming at me. My headlamp beam bounced wildly, lighting up distorted shapes in the rock that looked like faces twisted in silent howls. I stumbled, my breath coming in ragged gasps. In the middle of the noise, I started hearing other things. Whispers woven between the knocking. My name. Jake. A chorus of faint, raspy voices. Stay with us. Was it real? Or was my mind, under the stress and fear, finally breaking? I was running from the ghosts of the mine and the ghosts in my own head. I risked a glance behind me, and my heart seized. Far down the tunnel, a tiny light was bobbing in the dark. Another headlamp. For a split second, relief washed over me. Another person. A rescuer. I stopped, panting, and raised my hand. "Hey! Over here!" The light stopped moving. The thunderous knocking, which had been building to a maddening crescendo, just ceased. Abruptly. Utterly. The silence that fell was more terrifying than the noise. It was a dead, hollow vacuum. My ears were ringing, and my own frantic heartbeat was the only sound in the universe. The distant light stayed motionless. Then, it blinked once, and I heard a sound, impossibly clear in the sudden stillness, travel up the tunnel. Tap. A soft, inquisitive little knock. A question. The light wasn't a rescuer. It was the entity. It had been hurting me with sound, and when I bolted, it tried to break me with a sonic assault. When that didn't work, it changed tactics. It was mimicking a human, using my own hope as a weapon. It was intelligent. It was learning. That single, questioning tap was the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced. I didn't scream. I just turned and scrambled, clawing my way up the tunnel, slipping on loose rock, pushing myself back up, driven by pure adrenaline. I didn't look back again. I ran blindly, my lungs on fire. My only focus, the faint memory of the path back to the entrance. After what felt like an eternity, I saw it. Not light, but a subtle shift in the darkness ahead. A change from absolute black to a hazy, luminous gray. The entrance, the sun. I burst out of the mouth of the Blackwood mine and collapsed, gasping the fresh, clean air, shaking uncontrollably. I lay there for a long time, just looking up at the sky, at the green trees, feeling the sun on my skin. I never looked back at the dark opening in the mountain. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed my camp gear from the entrance, and fled. I didn't stop driving until I saw the lights of a town. I never went back. I understand the truth of that place now. The folklore was a weapon, a story twisted to serve a malevolent purpose. The spirits in the Blackwood mine aren't trying to warn anyone. They're just eternally, crushingly lonely. They are the ghosts of men who died in the dark, and all they want is company. They knock to draw you in, to guide you to their tomb, so that you might join them, and add your own phantom knocking to the chorus that echoes forever in the deep. The Blackwood mine is still out there, silent and waiting in the Appalachian hills. So if you ever find yourself near an old, forgotten tunnel, and you hear a friendly little tap coming from deep inside the earth, do yourself a favor and walk away. And hey, if you have a story about a sound you couldn't explain, or a place that just felt wrong, I'd genuinely love to read it in the comments below. It helps to know you're not the only one who's listened to the darkness. Subscribe for more stories from the places that have been forgotten. Thanks for listening.